こんにちは。今回は新型プリウスの走行レビューについてのお話です。日本のジャーナリストさんの走行レビューが続々と配信されてきていますが、アメリカからも配信されていますので、今回は比較のためアメリカ発のものを取り上げさせていただきます。日米のグレードの違いにつきましては、2リットルエンジンのハイブリッド車は国内では G または Z グレードになりますが、アメリカでは XLE グレードのみとなります。本動画ではこの XLE の2輪駆動 FWD と4輪駆動の E-Four の2機種について走行レビューが行われています。新型プリウスは加速の良さが売りになっていますが、動画の中でも車の加速を比較するために時速60マイルに達するまでの時間 060mph を測定しています。日本ではこれに相当するものとして 0-100km 時間がありますが、60マイルは 96.6km ですので、この2つの時間は全く同じものにはなりません。060mph 時間は 0-100km 時間の約 96.6% となります。したがって国内の G または Z グレードの 0-100km 時間は 7.5 秒と発表されていますが、アメリカではこれに相当するものはこの表にありますように 060mph で 7.2 秒ということになりますので、この後動画を見る際に注意をしてください。動画の中で2台の車の 060mph を比較して2輪駆動の FWD と4駆の E-Four とではわずか 0.2 秒しか差がないにもかかわらず、価格では19万円もの差があり、コストパフォーマンスで考えると FWD の方がお買い得だと言っています。日本では E-Four を推すジャーナリストさんが多いように思いますが、これも一つの見方だと思います。以上のことを念頭に置いて動画の方をごゆっくりとご覧ください。
So the day has finally come. We are behind the wheel of the all-new 2023 Toyota Prius. I know a lot of you have been super excited to see. This is a very, very popular hybrid vehicle, one of the very first to come out over 25 years ago. So this is a pretty big deal, and we are kicking things off in the all-wheel drive version of the Prius, which means we have 196 horsepower, which means we have an additional permanent magnet-style rear electric motor. It's been significantly strengthened in terms of power output compared to the old model. 6 times more powerful rear electric motor. Really, in reality, it delivers around 40 horsepower and around 62 pound-feet of torque. But still, Toyota claims 0 to 60 in 7 seconds for this model, and I suspect it's going to be a little bit quicker. It's about 0.2 seconds quicker with 2 additional horsepower compared to the front drive model. We'll see if we can hop into a front drive model later and compare the differences. But I have to say, first setting off in the new Prius, you get a sense that you're driving a car that feels a lot more premium. It has less of a cheap economy car feel and more of a sleeker, more premium upscale sedan. One thing I'm noticing right away, just like all the other typical Toyota hybrids, when you drive the vehicle normally, you don't really notice too much in terms of annoyances, but you will hear the engine. The gas engine makes its presence extremely known. I'll be curious to drive the Prius Prime at a later date and see if that fixes that issue, which it should, because you'll be able to go almost 40 miles on electric-only range from the stronger electric motor. But still, I'm noticing right off the bat just how much more quick this car feels because of the stronger electric motor, the lithium-ion battery pack. It just feels like it tries to behave more like an electric car, especially at lower speeds. You can get up to higher speeds in EV mode versus the previous generation, which really, the nickel metal hydride battery of it, it just made for a drive that was just a buzzy and unpleasant experience. The seats also, I notice, are far more comfortable this year. This is the Softex interior on the XLE. It's a black interior. They just hug me, they hold me in place really nicely, and they just feel a lot more comfortable. Visibility in here, however, I will say isn't quite as good. The windshield is super raked, and you get a sense that you're driving a car that's just much lower. So for those of you who don't like that, you may prefer the older model. But let's go ahead and test out what we can get 0 to 60 wise in this car. We'll brake torque it. And no wheel spin because of the all-wheel drive. Wow, this thing actually feels pretty quick. 6.7 seconds. 6.7 seconds in a Prius. Let that sink in for a minute. The old model probably took closer to 10 seconds. This new version is easily 3 seconds quicker versus the last time that I got for a Prius all-wheel drive. It's just insane to me how fast this car is. Put my foot down again. You feel the electric motor torque basically push you back in the seat, which offers 152 pound-feet on its own. And then after the higher speeds, the engine will take over, and it just has a surge of power. I mean, yes, the noise is really unpleasant. I don't love the noise of the 2-liter 4-cylinder that runs on the Atkinson cycle, but the CVT is super smooth, responsive, behaves almost like a direct drive transmission until the engine comes to life. It's just annoyingly loud at that point. But it no longer feels lethargic. It no longer feels slow. It is a huge improvement, and Toyota should be really, really proud of themselves. I'm shocked at how quick this is. It gets me super excited to drive the Prius Prime sometime early next year. But other than that, the ride quality from the 4-wheel independent suspension is good. This is now riding on the TNGA-C architecture, which is stiffer, it's stronger. It's definitely a little bit more sporty feeling as well. The steering in this car definitely feels like it's a little bit quicker ratio. It doesn't really transmit much in terms of feedback, but what I'm really liking about the new Prius is that new instrument panel, the 7-inch display behind the steering wheel. It almost kind of functions like a heads-up display. You have this massive 12.3-inch display, and then look at the ambient lighting in this car. Guys, you can see there's a beautiful ambient light strip along the dashboard of the vehicle, and this is the XLE trim. Now again, it's not going to be as intricate as some of the really luxurious brands, but for a Prius, you guys have to admit the interior quality is definitely much improved versus the prior generations, and this model here that I'm driving is a really early pre-production model. But well, let's go ahead and hop into the front drive version and see what we can get in terms of the 0 to 60 time. But I have to say, guys, 6.8 is really impressive considering the efficiency of this car. All right, so after just hopping out of the all-wheel drive Prius, we are now sitting inside a limited front-wheel drive model, which means we have 194 horsepower. There's 2 less horsepower, but this car is lacking the rear separate e-axle that adds like 40 horsepower, not to the total output, but still, this model Toyota claims should do 0 to 60 in around 7.2 seconds, and you get about 3 mpg better. So instead of 49 mpg, we get 52 mpg. So for those of you who don't need all-wheel drive, you don't necessarily have to have it as well, and Toyota claims that it's still practically as quick, so that's a kind of a reason why you might want to get the front-wheel drive model and save yourself $1,400 as well. So let's go ahead and see what we can get 0 to 60 wise in this car. We'll go ahead and we'll brake torque it. Surprisingly quick, and no torque steer and whatnot, so that's pretty good. 7.18 seconds there. 7.18 is surprisingly fast. It's only, again, about, I got 6.7 is my best run that I got on the all-wheel drive model, so 7.18 is right on target with Toyota's claims. So again, if you want all-wheel drive, it'll get you another almost half a second faster in my testing. Toyota's testing is only 0.2, but again, it is a surprisingly fast vehicle, and it should be enough power for most people. And compared to like whether you can feel the weight difference, this is about a 100-pound difference. You're not going to really notice that. I'm going to switch the car into just its normal drive mode. We'll get it out of sport because most people in a Prius, they're not going to be going that fast. But this is where the car, you really appreciate the fact that it is a full hybrid system. Now the battery pack is very small, so you're not going to be doing electric-only driving much, but when you come up to a stoplight, you're in rush hour, you're stop-and-go traffic, this is where you can kind of appreciate the fact that the Prius is a full hybrid because it has the ability to accelerate in fully electric alone, and it's just very quiet, it's very smooth. The eCVT in this model kind of behaves like a direct drive transmission when it's in EV mode, but again, as soon as you give it a little bit more power, actually I'll put it into EV mode now. There's an EV button here. I want to show you guys. As soon as you push the accelerator, there we go. It says EV mode deactivated, accelerator pressed too far. But again, the amount of torque that you get, it's instantaneous. The car just surges forward with that nice feeling of effortlessness. The engine does have a little bit of that kind of noisiness that you associate with Toyota's hybrid system with the eCVT, but this 2-liter is such a joy. It's much better versus the old 1.8. The car is just night and day difference in terms of acceleration. In terms of the ride quality, this model here still has the 19-inch wheels. It's a little bit lighter. We've got a fully independent suspension, although the rear suspension kind of behaves more like a semi-independent, not a torsion beam. It's more sophisticated than that, but the Prius, I believe, has a good ride quality. These skinny little tires, though, I imagine for those of you who want to attack like a corner more aggressively or a back road, you're probably going to want to upgrade the tire size to at least a 215 or a 225. I'll be curious to see if they actually fit something like that, and they have enough clearance on the wheels. But the one thing I do want to mention, the all-wheel drive version, now these are very early pre-production cars. That one was showing only around 38 miles to the gallon on the trip computer. This one here, this is being driven by very lead-footed journalists all day, is showing 43 mpg. So 43 mpg is a nice improvement. But again, this car is rated to get 52. I'll have to wait until I get one back home for a full week to do an actual fuel economy test. On a full tank, these cars were showing around 470 miles. They should, in theory, do around 550 at least when you have the fuel economy up to what the EPA or what Toyota says they'll do. So again, excellent range, excellent drivability. The car has a quiet enough interior, good ride quality. The only thing you're going to have to deal with is the fact that you have less headroom in here.